Or foreign exchange. Yes, anybody who's traveled knows that if anything is true, it's, yes, we do take foreign money. It turns out there's actually two theories about exchange rates. One's purchasing power parity, and the other one's interest rate parity. The PPPT talks about the value of money, what it can buy. Big Mac is a good example. It's kind of standardized, and you can see the differential with labor rates. Before going any further, let's look at what's called a cross-rate table. The currency described from one country's point of view is the reciprocal from the other, which means you can have two different viewpoints, theirs or yours. The trick is open two accounts, set them side by side, and your home account will exchange in the future. The foreign account will exchange sooner in the spot market. Think about it. How did it get there earlier? And it'll be noted that both the spot rate and the future exchange rates can be expressed as reciprocals of each other from each point of view. And of course, we need a bunch of examples. US dollar buys 30 Czech crowns. The interest rate's 8% in the US and is 12% in Czechia. Well, a 90-day future exchange rate, that would be what, a quarter of a year, would gain 2%, that's 1/4 of the 8 in the US, and 3%, 1/4 of the 12 in Czechia. And the gain goes to each account in each currency, and the new exchange rate now goes up to 30.29. Notice that's almost 1%. You really should not add percentages. Same example, but let's go out a half year. Now that's a half of the 8 is 4, half of the 12 is 6, and now we get 30.58. Not quite 2 percentage points, but notice that's the difference between the two. And likewise, that was per dollar. This example, let's do it against the foreign currency. This time, let's make it Denmark. Notice I put a little arrow there showing the multiplication is going the other direction. And we have 6% in the US, 9% in Denmark. A 60-day exchange rate would be a sixth of a year, so that's 1% of the 6% in the US, 1.5% of the 9 in Denmark. And the exchange rate now is 0.1194, not quite reflecting that half percentage point difference. Let's go back and do another one again now per US dollar against the Canadian dollar. And that's with 8% in the US, 4% in Canada, and we'll do 180 days, that's a half year. Half of the 8 is 4 in the US, and half of the 4 in Canada is 2 in Canada, and we get an exchange rate going by just about the amount of the differential of 2 percentage points. Now here is your killer trick. From the viewpoint of the domestic currency, that's the one in the denominator per 1 unit, if the rates go one way, the currency goes the other way. It makes you break even. Let's do something a little different and maybe a little more tricky, and that's to figure out the rate of return in another country. Here we have 1 Hong Kong dollar is 15 cents in the US. Interest rate's 8% in the US, and the 90-day future, a quarter of a year, is 153. What's the interest rate in Hong Kong? This time I've added an additional arrow to show the directionality as we first go to the exchange rate, then backwards. Meaning we gained that 2 percentage point in a quarter of a year. That's now 0.3 cents, and we get 153, but the exchange rate is 153, so we wind up with the same amount, meaning 0% in Hong Kong. But that was too easy. Same example, but this time we're going to have the future exchange rate be 1515. Again, gain of 2% in the US. And we divide, notice you wouldn't get dollars squared, the 1515 into 153, and we get a gain of 1% in Hong Kong, That's 4% per year, because remember, it was for 90 days. I like the two accounts approach, but we could do this more formally, stating the equations in either direction. In each one of these, it's per dollar in the first row, and we can solve for any one of the unknowns. Okay, two more examples. A euro equals $1.20 US. Interest rate in Europe's 10%. 180-day half-year exchange rate is $1.14. What should be the U.S. return? Turns out it's zero. Why? That was a 5% drop in a half year, 10% in a whole year, which completely ate up the difference. Let's do another. A Mexican peso is worth 10 cents in the U.S., 24% return in Mexico, 12% return in the U.S., 90-day future, quarter of a year, with just about the appropriate 3 percentage point drop in the value of the peso. Reminding you that the home account is later, the foreign account starts in the spot market.